Hey, how you going? It's Donna here from Free to Be Pet Therapy. I am a pet therapist and I use energetic healing to help pets move through trauma. So how cute is this little guy? His name's Carlisle Shakespeare, or Shakka for short, and he's a 15-year-old Welsh A pony. So I started working with this cute little guy because he had left side hind lameness for about 7 months, and it was preventing him from doing any real work. His owner Kim had only had him for about a year, and she was a very experienced horse person, and she was hoping that Shakka would help introduce her into driving. So yeah, unfortunately, not too long after Kim brought Shakka to her property, within a few months, he had this lameness going on. She tried x-raying him. They were able to x-ray pretty much from the stifle downwards, and there were no issues. Unfortunately, they couldn't x-ray his pelvis, and no one could figure out what was going wrong. So Kim tried equissage with some paddock rest, but she actually found out that just paddock rest alone seemed to be helping Shakka the most. And yeah, on top of all of that, Kim's husband had a stroke, so she was like his full-time carer. She'd recently actually retired, so she had left a really busy job, which left her with minimal time to spend with Shakka. And then she ended up, having to care for her husband who'd had this stroke. So time was a real issue for her, and she was finding it hard to spend quality time with her pony. She had another pony as well, a companion pony. And yeah, just she was basically only able to really provide Shakka and the other pony with the basics as far as time goes, just feeding and watering, and so forth. So yeah, it was a bit of a tough time for Kim, obviously her husband, and the ponies as well. So yeah, Kim decided to give energy healing a go. Figured it couldn't hurt. So basically, the intention that we came up with to help discover why Shakka has been experiencing near hind lameness since March 2024, and to help him heal from this lameness so that he becomes 100% functional and is able to enjoy some gentle harness work 2 to 3 times a week. So yeah, the ideal outcome that Kim let me know was that Shakka could go into work again. She would it seemed to me that Shakka was experienced at, pulling a cart. Kim was a very experienced horse person, but was very inexperienced as far as driving a cart goes. So she was kind of hoping that her and Shakka would share this experience where Shakka would hopefully teach her a few things, and obviously she'd teach Shakka a few things. And so yeah, it was just some fun, really. So I only managed to do 2 healings for Shakka. Just some family issues came up for Kim, and so all healing stopped. So 2 sessions. The first session, some of the things that came up was, first things first, Shakka just needed to be energetically grounded as well as protected. He needed some brain integration. Figure eights is what I use for brain integration in this particular situation, I should say. And it's actually really good for pain relief as well. And what came up for him was a crystal. Now, I'm not sure how to say it properly. Chrysocolla? Or maybe it's chrysocolla. I have no idea. But anyway, I had never heard of the crystal before. But what it does, it aids in preventing ulcers, digestive problems, arthritic conditions, strengthens lungs and thyroid gland, enhances metabolism, excellent for female disorders, alleviates fears, guilt, tension, helps clear subconscious imbalances, activates feminine qualities, amplifies the throat chakra, creative expression, power, communication, joy, emotional balance, and it's really good for the heart and throat chakras. And it was interesting about the fact that this particular crystal was really good for the throat chakra, creative expression, all the rest of it, because later on in the testimonial I find out actually why that was quite important for Shakka. And the crystal also, one of the qualities was that enhances metabolism. That was really interesting that came up too, because you'll find out a bit more at the end. But yeah, I guess throughout the healings, my focus was very much on the lameness. I wasn't, I guess now looking back, I could see perhaps some clues as to what comes up later on, and we'll get into that a little bit later in the video. And speaking of one of those clues, one of the things that came up for Shakka in his first healing was he needed a lifestyle change. Lifestyle change, specifically exercise. He needed aerobic exercise, but unfortunately, obviously, he couldn't do the aerobic exercise because of his lameness. So that, that was a bit of a bummer. Diet also came up under lifestyle. So once again, there was some sort of change needed. I picked up that he needed some possible supplementation, which maybe he didn't know what, but like I said, we will focus on the lameness, so didn't focus too much on that aspect. Okay, then he needed a muscular system clearing and balancing. He also needed one of his endocrine glands cleared and balanced. It was his pituitary. So the pituitary gland regulates growth, metabolism and reproduction through the hormone that it produces. So it's quite often associated actually with Cushing's disease. And it's the production of these hormones that is either stimulated or inhibited by chemical messages sent by the hypothalamus to the pituitary. So the pituitary gland, it actually can affect the metabolism of glucose as well. And so there was kind of another clue as to potentially what was happening with Shakka while I was doing these healing sessions. Okay, Shakka then needed a special blessing or just to invoke healing. It was all to do with enhancing his life force, increasing the good energy, balancing out the not so good energy, all to do with just giving his system a good boost at an energetic level, just to get him at a higher state where he can live more at his fullest potential. Emotion came up for Shakka. It was lack of faith in the future. And this emotion became an issue for him in March. So that was when his lameness began. Now, this emotion is actually related to the spleen meridian. And the spleen meridian is very much connected with the pancreas. So once again, we're getting some clues as to potentially what was happening with Shakka. But like I said, we were focusing on the lameness. So didn't really pick up on these little things. And then the first chakra that he needed clearing and balancing was his solar plexus. Now, solar plexus comes up a lot with horses. It could be possibly to do with the fact that horses are so prone to digestive issues, and it's very much associated with the digestion, but it's also associated with the, sorry, I shouldn't say that. One of the imbalances is probably what I should say is diabetes. And he then needed a minor chakra balance, his body language chakra, which is about him self-expressing. He needed Archangel Raphael, so Raphael's all to do with healing at all levels. And he needed Archangel Metatron, who is all about releasing what no longer serves. There was some ancestral energy and emotion to do with feeling bitter, so I was able to release that. He needed a 5-day download, so receiving information from above, and then he needed his root and self-preservation chakras cleared and balanced. Shakka needed actually some colour therapy. He needed the colour magenta, and he needed the metaphysical aspects that the colour magenta provides. So love, adoration, humanitarian and emotional balance. So humanitarian, I don't know. Humanitarianism is the production of human welfare, so horse welfare. Okay, Shakka then just needed his skeletal system cleared and balanced. He needed a heart chakra clearing and balancing, as well as his oversoul, which is how he's connected to spirit of horse. Now, it was after this first session when I was connecting with Kim. She had mentioned that as far as feedback goes from the first session, that Shakka seemed a bit less withdrawn. I didn't know that he was withdrawn when we first started getting into all of this. I was purely informed of the fact that he had this lameness. So it was nice to know at least that he was starting to feel better. And the other thing that Kim mentioned was that he actually tried to have a little trot around the paddock. He managed a few steps apparently, and he hadn't tried that in a long time. So that was a good sign. Okay, so Shakka's second session, that's a bit of a tongue twister. He just needed some chakras cleared and balanced to start with. Then he needed archangels. He needed Archangel Gabriel and Archangel Metatron. Now, I mentioned Metatron earlier. I don't think Gabriel's come up very often. So Gabriel is all to do with changing emotional situations, in charge of visions, dreams and revelations, breathes new life into stale relationships, is all about changes and new experiences. So it was interesting that Archangel Gabriel came up. Maybe it was to do with the fact that Kim was trying something new and Shakka was there to help her try something new, and they were hoping to have some fun together, and who knows. Okay, so then I had to release a negative belief associated with self-suffering, always picked up from a human, possibly the previous owner's daughter, so I was able to release that. Shakka needed the Flower of Life. So yeah, the Flower of Life is all about boosting Shakka's energetic field with energy from above and energy from below. He then, what came up for him next was copper. So copper influences blood flow, supplies strong energy to the body and mind, aids in the metabolism, helps detoxify the body. It's an aid for exhaustion and sexual imbalance. It aligns the physical and emotional bodies, it raises self-esteem, and it's a strong conductor of energy. So interesting, once again, we've got a bit of an aid to the metabolism that was needed. Lifestyle came up again for Shakka. This time it was under the heading of spirituality. He needed some breathing. Now, when this comes up in a healing, I quite often recommend that people be with their pet, maybe put their hands on. In the case of a horse, you might place one hand up on their back and the other hand the side of their ribs, and just conduct some slow, deep breaths yourself. And just allow the hands to remain on the horse, and hopefully the horse will start to deepen their own breath as well. He then needed a detox, and then an emotion came up for Shakka of regret. Now, with this particular emotion, I needed to use an essence to release it, and the essence was purification, which is created to assist animals with detox on all levels, recommended for exposure to physical, emotional and environmental toxins, as well as any other condition that may require detoxification. So it's interesting, we seem to be on a bit of a detox theme for this session, because he needed the copper, which is all about detox. He needed that specific detox that I provided him earlier on. And then to release this emotion, he needed purification, which is a detoxifier. So it was just interesting that this came up. Okay, he then needed his oversoul chakra cleared and balanced, and that solar plexus once again, and a bit of help from Archangel Raphael for some healing. So if you haven't already guessed from some of the things that I have noted, what ended up happening with Shakka is he ended up being diagnosed with diabetes. So there were those clues. There was the crystal that he needed to enhance his metabolism. There was that lifestyle change. He needed some aerobic activity, as well as a supplementation. The pituitary gland came up, that affects glucose metabolism. And then the first chakra that came up for him was solar plexus, which, if imbalanced, is very much associated with diabetes. And then a really important family issue came up for Kim, so all healing stopped at that point. She basically focused on veterinary help to help Shakka with the diabetes, and yeah, she just did not have the time anymore. Her husband was okay, I'll let you know that, but just something else came up which didn't give her time to proceed with any further healings for Shakka at that point. But she did find the time a couple months later to write me a bit of a testimonial, which, to be honest with you, came to me as a complete surprise. So in her testimonial, this is what she wrote. Donna gave my dear Welsh A 2 readings. He had been having some health problems and appeared depressed and was not himself. Normally he yells when he thinks it is mealtime and hears us in the house. This, amongst other parts of his happy and inquisitive personality, had stopped. Post Donna's readings, our loud, inquisitive boy made a comeback. For this I am most appreciative. So yeah, I had no idea that Shakka had lost his spunk, that he had basically seemed to come across as depressed, even though Kim had mentioned it after the first one that he was less withdrawn. Yeah, I didn't really know too much about it. I was pretty focused on the lameness. So it was really nice. I may not have helped him that much at the physical level, but it was really nice to know that he got his personality back and that he was back to his, you know, full self again, which was really cool. So yeah, Shakka was one of the horses that helped me decide that I really wanted to move into helping horses release traumas more so than dealing with injuries or illnesses. And the interesting thing about that is I remember when I first started learning energy healing for animals, I found the emotional side really hard to do. I found it really hard to discover what emotion needed to be released or balanced. Yeah, I really struggled with it, and at first I'd almost dread doing it, but now it's the thing that I love the most. So yeah, I really love the fact that I've reached this place where I know that my thing is, or my gift to animals, be it horse, dog, cat, is to help them release or overcome traumas. So on that note, if you do have an animal, be it a horse, a dog or a cat, that you feel has some emotional trauma that needs to be released, don't hesitate in contacting me. My website is down below in the comments. I'm sure you can contact me. There's a couple of ways there. But yeah, I'd love to help, because this is my thing. I really enjoy doing is helping animals release traumas so that they end up living more of their authentic self, living free to be themselves with no limitations. Until next time, whenever it may be, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.